Please rise for the presentation of colors and the singing of our national anthem. Ladies and gentlemen, please be seated. I am Cadet First Lieutenant Deanna Cohen. I am honored to have been asked to share my thoughts about Memorial Day at today's assembly. Now, we come together at assemblies just a few times a year. When we do, it usually relates to our scheduling for the following school year or a new policy being explained. Sure enough, there are some assemblies with greater meaning than just what happens within our school. Today I stand in front of you, my classmates, my friends, and administration to speak about what Memorial Day means to me. A holiday which remembers those who have fallen for our country and those who have lived their lives serving our country and have now passed. Without the servicemen and women of our history and of today, none of us would be sitting here right now with comfort in the freedoms that we hold. It may seem easy to put into words the meaning of this holiday, but for me it became quite difficult when I sat down to write my thoughts. Why? Because like many of you, I unfortunately have never given it so much thought. This holiday has simply faded in to the, quote, Monday off of school right before summer day to many students all around the nation. But it should be better recognized and reflected upon. This holiday means remembering. It means understanding the ongoing fight which most of America takes for granted. For the many freedoms we hold do not come without people dedicating every single day of their lives to protecting them. The men and women who wake up each day and put on a uniform to serve our country are not to be forgotten about. And those who have passed should have just as great a place in our minds on the daily, for we shall never allow their lives of dedication to be forgotten. For Americans are fortunate enough to have a select group of servicemen and women who have traded their lives for millions of people with no other connection to them than the nation that we live in. Now, what this all means in essence is that we need to not only feel sadness and appreciation on this day, but feel and understand the responsibilities these servicemen and women left up to us. These responsibilities in my eyes include being kind, helping those in need, refraining from violence, and so much more. Each one of these actions will be our country's way of giving back to the select few who died to give us freedom. For freedom doesn't last without a fight. And our fight against violence and our fight to be the best that we can be as a nation does not simply end with those who have passed. It is those who live now and the choices we all make that will determine our country's successes. So this Memorial Day, let's not only remember the fallen, but most importantly, choose to stand up on this day and every day to make a difference and fulfill the freedoms these men and women died for. Now please welcome Mount Olive's own Chief Master Sergeant Bedell.
All right, good afternoon, Marauders. How we doing? Oh, you gotta be doing better than that. Gotta be doing. All right, well, for many servicemen and women like myself, Memorial Day is a bittersweet day. As we pause to share our time, stories, and memories of America's military heroes, we recall the names and faces of our fallen soldiers, sailors, airmen, Marines, Coast Guardsmen, and all those who have carried the shield in America's wars. They have made the ultimate sacrifice in defense of our great nation. Well, Decoration Day, as this day was originally known as, is a day of reverence, remembrance, and yes, even celebration. Federal law established the holiday's official name as Memorial Day in 1967, and it was in 1971 that Congress went on to declare that Memorial Day would be observed on the last Monday of May. Memorial Day has become the traditional start of summer. For many in our nation, it has evolved into a day of picnics, barbecues, parades, swimming pool openings, and family celebrations. It has, in effect, become a day we celebrate the triumphs of those we honor. The actual freedom to enjoy family, friends, and loved ones with these summertime events has been given to us by those precious few who have sworn to give their lives in its defense. As I prepared my words for today, I began thinking of all our past servicemen and women who came before me who also raised their right hand to support and defend the Constitution. But like me, they never truly considered the cost. Some were simply patriotic Americans who consider it their duty to serve before returning home and entering the job market. There's others who may have liked the uniform and the instant prestige of being in the military. Many serve for the benefits, if it be for education, travel, or the like. And of course, there are those who weren't given the choice, but simply drafted. But the mass majority always believed that they would return home and resume their normal lives following their service in the military. Unfortunately, though, this was not the case for many brave men and women who have fought for our freedoms all the way back since the Revolutionary War through our present war in the Middle East. I'd like to share a story with you. It's a story about three brothers right here in the great state of New Jersey. These three brothers answered the call of duty during World War II. And like us, they were proud to wear their uniforms and had dreams of returning as war heroes. As they departed the States, they kissed their mom and their wives and said, "Be back soon." One brother boarded his naval vessel heading to the Pacific, while the other two joined their air crews flying over the Atlantic to Europe. Writing home often, the letters sounded like they were off at camp, experiencing new adventures and meeting lifelong friends, and always closed the letters with how much they missed home. Now, they always avoided talking about the war, just so they didn't worry the women in their lives. But although war certainly was not as glamorous as the movies, they never doubted for a second that the war would be over soon and they would return to the New Jersey shore to reminisce with their war buddies. It was now May 8th, 1944. The oldest brother boarded his B-17 with his 9 crew members as they embarked on their 29th and second to last mission before heading home. Their target? The heart of Berlin. Unfortunately for this brother, that would be his final mission. A few days later, his mom and wife received news that his aircraft did not return following their mission, and he was currently labeled as missing in action. The family had to endure not knowing the status of their beloved son and husband. A couple months of praying and hoping had passed when the dreaded news arrived that it was confirmed through survivors of his crew that he did not make it out of the airplane. Now in November of 1944, while still mourning the death of his brother, it was the youngest brother, boarded his B-24 for a bombing run over Eastern Europe. This, too, would be his final flying mission in the war. The plane took on heavy anti-aircraft artillery and eventually made the aircraft unflyable. Fortunately, though, this brother was able to bail out, and he did survive the landing. The bad news? He bailed out over German-occupied Poland, and the Nazis found him practically immediately, and he was shipped off to Stalag Luft 4. Back home, his mother received a telegram with the news that her baby had been captured by the Germans, but no other details on his health or his condition. With the loss of one son and a second now declared a POW, the Navy sent the third son home to care for the family. Now, the winter in Eastern Europe was bitter cold. The Stalag housed nearly 10,000 prisoners of war from multiple Allied countries, and although Nazi POW camps weren't Disneyland, they at least were more civil and for the most part followed the Geneva Convention rules, certainly compared to the treacherous Japanese camps and the later horrors of Vietnam. In the Stalags, the prisoners received 2 meals a day from food provided by the Red Cross, and they didn't receive any mail, but they were able to send some mail out through the Red Cross. And as you can imagine, what a relief to his mother and wife to at least know that he was alive and that relatively good health. Well, Christmas came and went, then New Year, and on February 6, 1945, on his son's 3rd birthday, the brother was gathered up among 8,000 other prisoners and were led out of the camp by foot. Unbeknownst to them, the Russians were regaining ground in the region and were about to overtake their prison camp. So the Nazis needed to retreat back to Germany while evading the Russians with 8,000 prisoners in tow. They hiked for the next 3 months, covering nearly 600 miles, and survived a bitterly cold winter, which brought with it frostbite, pneumonia, and, for some, death. This march would later be known as the Black March. On May 2, 1945, while holding down in a small German town, Allied forces rolled in and liberated the approximate 6,000 remaining prisoners, to include the one remaining brother. The very next day, he wrote his first letter to his wife, and I have it here with me, and I'd like to read it to you now. He wrote, "Dearest May, I'm finally a free man again, and it sure feels good. I was liberated yesterday at 12:30 noon by the British at Lüneburg. Germany is sure paying an awful price for what she started. The country's been blown to hell and then some. I hope to be home before you get this letter. I'm flying from here to France in 24 hours and from there by boat, I think. If I don't get home by Mother's Day, I want you to know I'm thinking of you. I've prayed daily for you and Bobby, and sometimes twice a day. You'll never know what hell I went through. I hope they're making new cars now because I'm buying one as soon as I get home. I've got a lot of back pay coming, and I'm going to enjoy it with you and Bobby. Oh, I can hardly wait to see you both. I bet Bobby is really a big boy now. I hope Mother and Dad are in good health. I've never gotten any mail since I've been a prisoner. Tell Mother I'm thinking of her on Mother's Day and hope to be there with her. I've been walking since February 6th, sleeping outdoors and living like an animal. I walked about 600 miles altogether. Well, I'll close for now, honey. Lots of love to you and Bobby. Signed, Bob. Also known as Sergeant Robert Edgar Bedell. Yes, that's my grandfather. And that lovely lady that he was writing to, that would be my grandmother. And yes, I'm sure you figured now, that little boy, Bobby, is my dad. The brother who was killed in action, that would be my great uncle, First Lieutenant John Bedell. And just like my grandfather, my uncles, my dad, cousin, my brother, and now my son and son-in-law, and the many thousands of brothers and sisters in arms, we all just wanted to do something that was bigger than us. Something that mattered. But for those who gave the ultimate sacrifice, we need to never forget them or the families whose lives were forever changed with the news of their loved one. Former President Ronald Reagan said it best in his remarks at Arlington National Cemetery on Memorial Day of 1982, when he stated, "Our first obligation to them and ourselves is plain enough. The United States and the freedom for which it stands, the freedom for which they died, must endure and prosper." Their lives remind us that freedom is not bought cheaply. It has a cost. It imposes a burden. And just as they whom we commemorate were willing to sacrifice, so too must we, in a less final, less heroic way, be willing to give of ourselves. So on this and every Memorial Day, we must never forget the day's meaning, and we must remember those patriots who made the ultimate sacrifice in the name of freedom and justice. Thank you, and please draw your attention to the screens for a short video.
A few moments ago, I placed a wreath upon the tomb of 3 brave Americans who gave their lives in service to our nation. The names of these honored are known only to the Creator who delivered them home from the anguish of war, but their valor is known to us all. It's the same valor that endured the stinging cold of Valley Forge. It is the same valor that planted the proud colors of a great nation on a mountaintop on Iwo Jima. It is the same valor that charged fearlessly through the assault of enemy fire from the mountains of Afghanistan to the deserts of Iraq. It is the valor that has defined the armed forces of the United States of America. Today we gather to honor those who gave everything to preserve our way of life.
For more than 200 years, the American flag has been a symbol of our nation's unity, as well as a source of pride and inspiration for millions of citizens. Born on June 14, 1777, the Second Continental Congress determined that the flag of the United States be 13 stripes, alternating between 7 red and 6 white, and that the Union be 13 stars, white in a blue field, representing a new constellation. Between 1777 and 1960, the shape and design of the flag evolved into the flag presented before you today. The 13 horizontal stripes represent the original 13 colonies, while the stars represent the 50 states of the Union. The colors of the flag are symbolic as well. Red symbolizes hardiness and valor. White signifies purity and innocence, and blue represents vigilance, perseverance, and justice. Traditionally a symbol of liberty, the American flag has carried the message of freedom and inspired Americans both at home and abroad. In 1814, Francis Scott Key was so moved at seeing the Stars and Stripes waving after the British shelling of Baltimore's Fort McHenry that he wrote the words to the Star-Spangled Banner. In 1892, the flag inspired Francis Bellamy to write the Pledge of Allegiance, our most famous flag salute and patriotic oath. In July 1969, the American flag was flown in space when Neil Armstrong planted it on the surface of the moon. Today, our flag flies on constellations of Air Force satellites that circle our globe and on the thin flash of our aircraft in harm's way in every corner of the world. Indeed, it flies in the heart of every airman who serves our great nation. The sun never sets on our U.S. Air Force, nor on the flag we so proudly cherish. Since 1776, no generation of Americans has been spared the responsibility of defending freedom. Today's airmen remain committed to preserving the freedom that others won for us, for generations to come. By displaying the flag and giving it a distinctive fold, we show respect to the flag and express our gratitude to those individuals who fought and continue to fight for freedom at home and abroad. Since the dawn of the 20th century, airmen have proudly flown the flag in every major conflict on land and skies around the world. It is their responsibility, our responsibility, to continue to protect and preserve the rights, privileges, and freedoms that we, as Americans, enjoy today. The United States flag represents who we are. It stands for the freedom we all share and the pride and patriotism we feel for our country. We cherish its legacy as a beacon of hope to one and all. Long may it wave. Ladies and gentlemen, please stand for the playing of taps.